You know how in the past I've talked about how the Hashemite kingdom of Jordan, King Abdullah II, and his kingdom have controlled the Temple Mount since the 1920s, and that has been a preventative of the Jews building the third temple. And I talked about how recently there had been discussion that MBS of Saudi Arabia might be handed custodianship in the future, or at least partial custodianship. The Hashemite kingdom wants to hang on to the Temple Mount in controlling it with the Waqf. And I had discussed before about that if the kingdom of Jordan was removed from the custodianship and the custodianship was transferred to Saudi Arabia, to MBS, because he already controls the main huge mosques in Saudi Arabia that Jordan had previously had control of. So the Temple Mount would be one more addition to their control if they were given custodianship of this area of Holy Mount Moriah. And I talked about how, people say, he who now restrains will do so till he's taken out of the way. This could be a reference, since he who now letteth and let is the land lease that I revealed before, that this is speaking of someone being removed from preventing the Jews from building the temple. And they don't want that. They don't want the Jews and Christians praying up there on the Temple Mount so far. And if this custodianship changed, then it's possible that that would change and there would be an allowance for them to have a piece of the land to build the third temple on. And then that would produce what's going to happen in prophecy in the Bible in the future. And I'm not talking about us as the third temple or anything like that, because in reality, it's not really the third temple. But that's another subject for another day. And I just wanted to share something about King Abdullah II of Jordan that was just in the JNS paper on July 27th, because I always try to pay attention to what's going on there, since the Hashemite kingdom has been in control of God's holy mountain since the 1920s. It says in Iman, Yair Lapid and Jordan's King Abdullah talk Agtech, energy, and tourism. The two leaders discussed the U.S. President's visit to the region, as well as several major bilateral projects. Israeli Prime Minister Yair Lapid met with Jordan's King Abdullah II in Amman on Wednesday, that was July 27th, 2022, according to a statement from Lapid's office. During the meeting, which Lapid's office characterized as long and warm, the two leaders discussed bilateral relations as well as the recent visit to the region of U.S. President Joe Biden and the resulting possibilities and opportunities, including the seemingly changing regional architecture. Among the specific projects discussed were the Jordan Gateway Industrial Park, the construction of solar power facilities and desalination facilities in Israel, joint tourism in the Gulf of Eilat, Gulf of Aqaba, food security, agriculture, and transportation links. According to Reuters, Abdullah II told Lapid that the Palestinians should be part of U.S.-sponsored regional economic projects geared towards fostering stability. The report added that Jordanian officials had been pressing Jerusalem to include the Palestinians in potential water for energy deals that could be financed by Gulf states. During a visit to Jordan in April by Israeli President Yitzhak Herzog, the Jordanian monarch proposed that the two countries set up a joint wheat reserve and food storage center. The proposal, which came against the backdrop of Russia's invasion of Ukraine in February, called for the setting up of joint reserves each country could draw from should it find itself in distress, and that could be expanded to include Egypt and the Palestinian Authority. So it's very interesting that the king of Jordan wants to make deals with Israel to, have a wheat reserve in case one of the countries gets in trouble. And it just reminds me so much of the story of Joseph and how he, became the second runner-up leader in Egypt during the time of the famine. And then, of course, his brothers that had dumped him off in a well and sold him off to slavery, he winds up saving the day with the wheat reserves. And of course, his brothers came back to him and he forgave them, even though they had done terrible things to him, and made their father, Jacob, believe that he had died and being ripped apart by animals. And I'm sure the grief in his heart was beyond measure, when that happened. So this is very interesting. It's kind of like history is repeating itself, and especially if it included Egypt, to have wheat reserves with Israel. So I think that's really fascinating. And maybe during the time of Jacob's trouble, when famine does hit severely, it's happening now, but I'm saying in the tribulation, things are going to get much worse. So maybe these wheat reserves are going to be there to help these different countries. So I just had a little bit more of this printed out, so I wanted to read it, where it's by JNS, July 31st, 2022. It said, Israel to accelerate development of joint industrial park with Jordan. The Israeli government on Sunday approved a proposal to accelerate the creation of a joint industrial zone straddling both sides of the border with Jordan, according to a statement by Prime Minister Yair Lapid's office. Known as the Jordan Gateway, the initiative is geared towards increasing cooperation between Israelis and Jordanians, and was first proposed during talks on the 1994 peace accord. 28 years since the peace agreement with Jordan, we are taking the good neighborly relations between our two countries another step forward, Lapid said in the statement. It will allow Israeli and Jordanian entrepreneurs and business people to communicate directly. It will produce joint initiatives in trade, technology, and local industry. This is a breakthrough that will contribute greatly to developing and strengthening the region, the Prime Minister added. The plan includes an already constructed bridge joining the Israeli and Jordanian sides of the park, and Sunday's decision calls for advancing the construction of a terminal in Israel for pedestrian crossings that will house a facility for hosting business people and guests who arrive from Jordan. Plans to immediately build an entrance to the facility along with the necessary structures for operating the park will now be evaluated, and resources will be allocated in order to complete the project, the statement said. The government will also begin devising medium and long-range term plans for attracting commercial entities to the industrial zone. So you can see that the Hashemite kingdom is trying to, strengthen their position with Israel in this way with the Agtech and all of that. So it's a very interesting development. I hope you found this report interesting.